So as you can see from our previous videos, we just set up a size for our graphic window, which I've modified slightly from previous videos. Oops. I've told the user they can't change the size of the graphics window, and we've just set the background colour to be a random colour. We're going to look at now drawing shapes. Now this is actually different to what we've done previously. We've either filled shapes or drawn shapes. These are permanent things that sit on the graphics window. I would like to draw something that we can move on the graphics window, because you cannot move something that you've drawn or filled to the graphics window. That just has its permanent pixels drawn there. So shapes are something that we can move around. So we're going to create a shape, we're just going to type in shapes, and you notice the autocomplete comes up, and there's lots of tools that we have in shapes. So notice we can zoom on a shape, we can show or hide a shape, we can move it, we can remove it, we can add a shape, we can get its position. Again, just please look and play around with these things, because you do get the instructions within Small Basic about what they do. We're going to start by just adding an ellipse, shapes.add, and we're going to add an ellipse. And you'll notice, different to when we draw or fill, we don't need to give it a location, we just give it a width and a height, which is different to the other shapes we've done previously. So let's just say we're going to give it a width of 150. 150 by 150. If we run this program just like this, we can see that we've drawn a shape. It has plotted it as 0, 0. As a standard, when a shape is created, it just moves to the top left corner. So we can of course move that shape, and we use the shapes.move command, which we're going to have a problem with, and we'll go slowly through it. So if we go to shapes.move and get to that, it says, well, we need the shape name and the x and y coordinate of that shape. Well, we never actually gave this shape a name. What we do with shapes is we effectively store them in a variable. We store them so that we can move them later on. So I'm just going to call this circ. For circle, circ equals shapes.addEllipse. And now I have the ability to move that ellipse, or that circle in our case, by saying, like it says up here, the shape name and the x and y position I want that shape to be in. So shapes.move, shape's name is circ, and the x and y position of that shape, well, let's move it to the center of the screen, which would be 800, oh sorry, because it's 800 wide, 400, if I could type, 400 by 400. And if we run this program now, the shape was created up here, but it's immediately moved to the center. Now you may be thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't look quite like the center of the screen to me. Well, you'd be right. Remember, the center of the screen runs down here against this edge because the shape is drawn here, and the middle center is drawn across here. So the very center of the screen is approximately here. But because we're drawing a circle, it will draw it here. So there's a few things that we could already do to tidy up this code. And I think the first thing that we're going to do is to say, rather than, and just do a little bit of maths here, rather than draw the circle at 400 by 400, because the issue with that is if I go and say later on, well, let's change the width of our graphics window, let's make it back to 1500. Well, now I need to go and change my code everywhere in my program, which could be quite big, to say, oh wait a minute, that's no longer being drawn in the center. I need to change that value as well. So I need to come down to the 400, calculate what the width is now, so it's 1500. So I need to change my x coordinate to half of that, 750, blah blah blah. Instead, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to set up some values at the top of my window. And I'm just going to say graph win x, and I'm going to set that equal to 800. Oops. And I'm also going to have a graph win y and set that equal to 800. Oh, need a h in there. I now can change these values just to be their correlating value up here. The height, of course, is for the y coordinate, so graph win y. And the x coordinate for the width, graph win x. Why on earth am I doing that? I could just put the number straight in here. Well, because down here, when we're moving our shape, I could tell it to move the shape to halfway of the graphics window's y position now. So I could say, well, what is the graphics window's x position? And I'd like you to divide that by 2. So we go to halfway through the graphics window's x position. Now, we could do the same. Well, let's just check to make sure that works. And of course, it's not perfect yet because it's drawing it just to the right, but you can see that's halfway through. And if I were to say, well, actually, let's have a bigger graphics window, let's say 2000, a really big one. You notice it still gets drawn at that halfway point. And again, we can do the same for our y direction. So we could say we want this to be the graphics window's y. Graphics window, graph win y divided by 2. And if we draw that again, we're drawing it in the centre of the x and the centre of the y. I'm going to switch this back to be something smaller, so let's just say let's go a bit bigger than, let's do 600 by 600. And of course the lovely thing is it will replot it back in that position for me. Bearing in mind that the centre point is here, and that's where the circle's being drawn. So if we wanted it to actually be drawn right in the centre of the graphics window, how would we go about doing that? Remember that the x coordinate, as we know from maths, is the one that runs along the corridor, and the y is the one that runs up the stairs, or in this case down the ladder. So to move the ball to be in this position, we need to move it half the ball's width in the x position backwards, and i.e. we're taking away that x value. With the y value, we're going up the grid. And remember, because the y's coordinates go 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, when we're going up, we're actually taking away. So we need to take away half the width of the ball going up. How does this look in code? Well, we can put this section in brackets. So with the x coordinate, we now need to take away, because we're moving to the left, half of the ball's width. So what is half of the ball's width? Well, the ball's width was labelled here. So I can say 150 divided by 2. The only thing I don't like about this is that my ball is going to be, this is assuming the ball's always 150. Why don't we create a new variable to set the circle size? Circ size, if I could type, equals 150. And then when we created the actual ball, we can do that based on this variable we've created, circ size and circ size. Now we don't have to refer to 150 in here, we can refer to the circle size. This is great, we don't have to remember the actual size of the circle that we set up at the start of our program, and if we change it, our program will still work. So this is all now just plotting the x position of the ball. It's saying, I want you to plot it half the width of the graphics window, take away half the width of the ball, and that gives it its exact central position. So just check to see if the x coordinate looks about right. Yeah, that's looking far more central to me, but still a little bit low in our graphics window. And we could possibly see this clearer by making our graphics window smaller, which we will come to do. In fact, why don't we play with it now? Bearing in mind that because we set graphics window's x position, and you can see in yellow where we use that a couple more times, we just change it here and it changes all the way through the code. So I could change the x to be half the size, 300, and change the y to be 300, And if we run our program now, again our ball is still being drawn in the centre of this width. It's not, however, being drawn in the centre of the Y location yet. So let's see if we can correct that. So the graphics window Y divided by 2, we're going to put that in brackets and take away another bit in brackets. We'd like to take away the circle size divided by 2. And if we run this one more time, we can see that we get the ball drawn perfectly in the centre. So again, what's the beauty of having these variables that we create at the start that, as we can see, are used at various different points in our program? Well, we can just modify them. So let's say we wanted a smaller ball. Let's say we wanted it to be, and beautifully, it can be as complicated as you like, 37 by 37. And if we run that program, we still find that small ball is still being drawn exactly in the centre. We could say the Y direction we want to change to 234 and the X to be 634, and we run that, and again we still find our ball being drawn smack bang in the middle of our window. This is the power of using variables effectively with the graphics window.